Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tabor Talk. I'm your host, Michael Tabor. So, just chatting away a couple of things on my mind, which is what I do. I usually pick a topic, but I talk about something and then dive into the topic. So, three things. Let's see. Number one, very serious. My wife's cousin is dying. He's older. He's 80 years old. I always thought it was Madeline's uncle because he was so much older, but he has had cancer for 19 years. He was diagnosed in 2000, and it's the end of the line now. He has a lot of other health issues too. His heart problems, diabetes. His body's dying, and he's had a long, good life. But last 19 years, it's been pneumonia, in and out of the hospital. So he's going to die. He's coming home, hospital. You know, I guess there's a consideration for hospice or home. He's going to come home to die and be with his family, and hopefully, I guess palliative care at this point, obviously. So, real awesome guy. I'm not saying this just because, he's dying. I don't know him real well, but the times I met him, he was just this really decent man. So, God bless him. All right. So, next thing, I wake up and I see this Donald Trump's tweet. I mean, can you imagine this? Let me go to Twitter here. His most recent tweet. Hold on just one second. Where is it? Oh, I don't want all this delay here. Inbox. Okay, this is unbelievable. This is the President of the United States. I kid you not. See that word, bullshit? This is coming from the President of the United States. He's a class act, isn't he? Donald Trump, real class act. The do-nothing Democrats should be focused on building up our country, not wasting everyone's time and energy on bullshit. I kid you not. In caps. The President of the United States wrote that. Which is what they have been doing ever since I got overwhelmingly elected in 2016. He puts the numbers there. By the way, you lost in the you won fair and square electoral vote. You lost by 3 million votes. Trump. You lost. More people voted for Hillary Clinton than you. You just lying piece of shit. What a piece of garbage. He writes like a third grader. He's an illiterate, uneducated punk. Trump. Right? Illiterate, uneducated, gangster, punk, vulgar, crass man. Right? Listen, I swear too, but what can I say? I'm from New York. I'm from Long Island. I'm originally from New Jersey. Spent a lot of time on Long Island. You can't not swear if you live on Long Island. Long Islanders are fucking crazy, man. Way crazy. Incredible crazy. I'm super bundled up. Okay, so there's that. And now, what I want to talk about is, as people know who follow me, I'm a big, huge fight fan, UFC. And I am going back to the beginning, from the very beginning, where it all began, November 1993, UFC 1 with the Gracies and all that. And I'm going to watch every single one of them today, break it down. The problem is you have to be very careful. UFC is a real motherfucker when it comes to blocking you. Any of their sort of content, they'll take it down. I've already done 3 full programs of my podcast, like 20-minute podcasts. I took UFC 1, I watched it, went through every single fight, and I showed some of the good clips, being careful again, not being blocked. So I went 1, 2, 3, and I've watched again. By the way, I've seen them all. I'm going back. It's a long time ago. I'm up to 1996. May of 1996, which was UFC 9. I watched 9 and 10 last night. Okay. Did I say that? Yeah, okay. I watched UFC 9 and 10 again. So UFC 9 was in May of 2000. May of 1996. And then 1996 was UFC 10 was July 14th in Alabama, Birmingham. July 14th, 1996. That was a month and a half after we got married. That's how long ago it was. Wow. So, and I have little index cards, the fights, and I watched and circled, and I remember this, like, the UFC 9 was the first time they didn't have tournament style, right? For 1 through 8, you would have, right, you have 8 guys, and then you have a tournament. So you'd have to win. If you won the whole thing, you have to have 3 fights in one night. Isn't that crazy? And then you would have, later on, like 7 and 8 had super fights, which was one big fight, like a Ken Shamrock or Dan Severn, whatever. So UFC 9, it was kind of different, no tournament, and that didn't go over well. But that's how we have it now. That's crazy tournament style. It's exciting, but, and I'll get into it in a bit, why it's not fair. So UFC 9, Dan Severn beat Ken Shamrock. It was a pretty shitty fight. It was long. It went 30 minutes. But it was so boring for the first 15, 20. They were just dancing around and nothing was happening. Fan was unhappy, boring. And then this is the day after the Detroit Red Wings won the Stanley Cup hockey. Stanley Cup. So it was 1996. This UFC 9 was in Detroit. And all the fans were yelling, Red Wings, and boring. But then the fight got exciting. It got really good. And then Dan Severn won and beat Shamrock. So really, I enjoyed it. I enjoy all the fights, even the long, boring. Remember the Gracie Shamrock fight? That was shitty. What was that? 40 minutes, and it was just laying on each other, nothing happening. By the way, fans, you have no business booing these people. These guys are incredibly tough. They're putting their life on the line, right? Like literally, like you obviously could die and get killed in a heart. Yeah, okay. These people suck. They're just drunk assholes. But anyway, so I'm looking at the card. Nothing. I'll talk about it a little bit more when I get more in depth about each one of these UFCs. Like I said, I've done 3 full UFCs. I've watched since 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. 9 and 10 last night, but I have not done video podcast recordings for 4 through 10. That's coming up. By the way, Mark Schultz, the brother of Dave Schultz, who was savagely murdered by John DuPont, that had happened earlier, January of 1996. Mark Schultz came into place and fought Big Daddy Gary Goodridge, and Mark Schultz won. Killed him. By the way, there's no money in here involved. Like a couple, especially this non-tournament style, probably a couple $1,000. Put your life on the line. Like nobody. It's just like a real fringe sport. It's not until lately that MMA has become mainstream. In the beginning, man, it was just like a couple thousand fans. It was cockfighting, no rules, no time limits, no weight classes. You thought for sure people thought they were going to die. And at this time, especially 1996. Everyone was looking to ban this stuff. People were outraged. By the way, John McCain was very vocal about this. He's like, we have to ban this shit. You see the signs you see all the signs like, don't ban our sport and all that, and the fans. Most of them were drunken assholes. But anyway, all right, let me go to 10. 9 was not so good, and no big winner. Okay, so the tournament styles, you win the 3 fight, usually get 50,000. There was one, I think UFC 4 was 60,000. But anyway, it's peanuts. It's nothing. They even asked Mark Schultz after 9, like, are you going to want to do this? He was very happy. He goes, well, if the money's right, there's no money here, And he never did fight again, Mark. Okay, so last night, this is what I want to talk about. Don Fry. He is incredible. Savage, strong, powerful wrestler. And he's this handsome guy. He looks, if you know people who don't know Don Fry, is a Magnum P.I. lookalike, Tom Selleck lookalike. But when he's in a ring, he even says, like, I have a bad, what does he say? I have a mean streak. It goes 8 generations. I'm Dutch or something. Like, I'm Dutch and Irish, and I'm a nasty motherfucker. Basically, that's what he was saying when he goes in the ring. He goes, I don't want to think good things about my opponent. I want to kill them. And it's incredible. So, Don Fry is fighting. Okay, I'll talk about this fight. He went to, by the way, it was Mark Coleman was there his first time. Mark Coleman won the tournament, by the way. Mark Coleman's this big, savage, jacked wrestler. And Don Fry beat Mark Hall. Mark Hall's one tough guy. Whew. And And then Fry fought Brian Johnson's another big, strong, jacked guy. And then Don Fry, Mark Coleman. And Don Fry was just worn out, and he lost to Mark Coleman ultimately. But what I want to get into is how unbelievable and kind of ridiculous the sport is. So Don Fry is fighting Brian Johnston, and I won't. I don't know if I could show the clips. I'll show you a picture of Don Fry. Maybe if I could find his interview on YouTube, or maybe I'll just talk about it. So Don Fry is fighting Brian Johnston, and he is got him on the ground, and he's taking his elbows, and just, again, there were no rules except for eye gouging and fish hooking. Eye gouging, fish hooking, and biting. Okay, so he's putting left hand like this, leaning, and just all his weight on his temple, smashing, and then his nose, just boom, smashing with all his weight, smashing his face up, right? Then he turns around, and he takes his elbow and starts smashing it on his spine, his spinal cord, all his weight with his elbow. I'm like, oh my God, stop! Oh, this guy's, you're gonna paralyze him. He's gonna die. And then and this is the other fight with Mark Hall. He's punching it in the side and like in his chest area, and it's all getting red. I'm like, holy fuck! He's gonna break his rib cage. He's gonna like cut his heart. He's gonna kill him. Like this, he's gonna smash his rib cage in his car. It was like making me nervous. I know the results, but I was like, oh, I'd forgotten how savage this was. And then at the end, was this Johnston or say I'm conflating these two fights with Fry Johnston and Fry Hall. But then he takes his knees and starts smashing it. He's got him on the ground and takes his knees and starts smashing his head. Then they finally stopped it. In the old days, the ref couldn't even stop it. You'd have to throw in the towel. But so I'm like, wow, this is fucking horrible, you know. And you see some of the audience, especially the women. The women are like, oh. The guys are like, oh, you know, they're all drunk. You know, difference between men and women with violence. But so anyway, at the end, Magnum PI, the Tom Selleck lookalike Don Fry, after the second fight, he's like, he's the nicest guy in the world. He's like, you know, he's out of breath, and he goes, well, yeah, he's a great competitor. Johnston, he's a really good fighter. And, you know, he hung in there, and then they talk strategy. And I knew when I got to the ground, it's like it's almost like he's talking to a baseball player after a game, or a basketball player, or even a football player. Well, I knew I was gaining advantage, but he hung in there tight. And thank you for the question, like this real gentleman. I go, dude, you just tried to murder another human being in the most savage way possible. You're it's so weird to me. It's so weird, the sport. It's like, I can't even believe that it's legal. Like, even today, like, it's battery. Battery legally means assault on someone who's not willing. They are willing participants, but it is what it is. It's fucking violence. And no rules. Headbutts and everything. Everything but biting and eye gouging. So let me just see if I could find the Don Fry interview after this. I wish I had this ready. Sorry, Don. Well, you know. Well, let me just show you Don Fry. Hold on one second. Well, let me just show you Don Fry. This is some of the hot. There he is. Oh, he's out. Don Fry is a savage, man. Okay. You get the point. There's a little more. There's a lot more of the highlights, but I won't show the whole thing. But anyway, I wanted to find the interview. I can't find it. It's probably not even there. But he's just this super nice guy, like all American. You see, Don Fry's actually a fireman. You know, listen, you didn't make a lot of money then. You made a couple $1,000s, and then you got to go back to your job. All right, people. I hope you enjoyed that. And yeah, just thinking about my my wife's cousin, really nice guy. And hey, it's sad. We all got to go someday. This doesn't last forever. We're all going to be in that situation. For most of us, it's going to be horrible. It's going to be, it's beyond words horrible dying. Like, can't sugarcoat it. Very few people get out of here painlessly. It just doesn't exist. Either you die slowly, a massive heart attack, stroke, and it's instant, car accident, or you long drawn out cancer, horror. It's just, there are cases where some people just like all of a sudden, even dying in your sleep, you don't know if it's horrible, but there have been cases, I've actually on YouTube, there was this guy who was giving a speech, public speaker, and he's like, oh yeah, he's talking, all of a sudden he looked a little confused and then closed his eyes and dead. He probably had an aneurysm, I think, but it was like he seemed perfectly fine. He's giving a speech, and then for a second, he seemed confused, closed his eyes, and he was dead. In the universe 1 second, out of the universe the next. That's the way I want to die. Okay. On that note, good friends, good books, and a sleepy conscience. Peace, love, and understanding here on Tabor Talk. I talked about a lot of things, but that's what this is, Tabor Talk.